Before we jump into this episode, I want to take a moment to tell you about the upcoming Texas Woodworking Festival, a 2-day celebration where makers and enthusiasts come together to share their passion for the craft. Join us for a weekend filled with creativity, community, and inspiration. You'll meet tool manufacturers, furniture makers, woodworking clubs, content creators, and more, all in one place with great food and drinks, and of course, all things woodworking. It all takes place in Austin, Texas on September 26th and 27th. The festival features an education track on both Saturday and Sunday, where you'll have a chance to learn from masters of the craft. Plus, there's also a special pre-conference content creator track on Friday, September 25th. Head to TexasWoodworkingFestival.com for more details and to grab your tickets. Use code MWAP10 to get 10% off your tickets. I'll drop a link in the show notes. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, there's something for everyone at the Texas Woodworking Festival. Don't miss it. Welcome to the MWA podcast. I'm Kyle and I'm joined by my co-hosts Sean and Jeff. Today, we're excited to have Peter Follansbee as our guest. Peter is an outstanding furniture and chair maker, primarily focusing on 17th century carved oak furniture from New England. He also teaches classes at a number of schools and has just released a new book with Lost Art Press titled 17th Century Essex County Cupboard. So, welcome to the show, Peter. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me.
Well, great.
Yeah, it's been a long time, man.
Well, before we get into talking with Peter about all of the interesting stuff that he has in his background and his long career here in woodworking, let's hear a word from our sponsor.
Sutherland Wells knows that exceptional craftsmanship deserves an exceptional finish. That's why they handcraft their full line of low and VOC exempt finishes and stains using the highest quality, cold-pressed, sustainably grown tung oil. Their unique polymerization process delivers the deep penetrating, grain-enhancing, non-yellowing protection of tung oil, while reducing the drying time, allowing the finish to build a beautiful, durable film. Sutherland Wells, the timeless look of traditional oil made for the modern woodworker, and use code MWA25, that's the numbers 25, for 10% off your first order.
And we'd like to thank Sutherland Wells for their sponsorship of this episode. And with that, let's give our patrons a shout out. So who do we have to thank this week?
Yeah, we always like to give a big shout out to our Patreon supporters. Today, we're giving that particular shout out to Tyler Aguirre. I'm sorry, I'm butchering your name, but Tyler, we'll go by that. Thank you for helping us out. If you, dear listener, would like to join Tyler in our support, you can do that by going to patreon.com/MWA podcast.
Yes. And Tyler, let us know how to pronounce your last name. You know?
Please.
I'll let Sean butcher it this time.
There you go.
Let's move into what's in the shop. So, Sean, what are you working on?
Not a whole lot inside because it's been hotter than Hades and I've been really busy with work. But when I'm not doing that work, I'm outside. And so golf is in session. It's been a weekly outing with the family to, hit some balls around a golf course, which is very, most of the time pretty fun. And I've now signed up. I think I've got 4 different scrambles between here and September that I'm somehow involved in and paying way too much money for, but that's neither here nor there. And I know, I think I mentioned it before, but I'm preparing. I'm slowly getting to the point of putting my irrigation in my front yard in the ground. I don't have the main pipe that I need to run, but I have all the heads. I have the timer. I've now hooked up my timer to my manifold and tested the solenoids. Like I know what I'm doing. That in that regard, it's just now getting into the actual digging part, which is a much, much bigger task.
Yes. You're still doing that by hand?
Yeah, I plan on it.
Okay. All right. Just checking. Here's
the reality. My leach field is a portion of my front yard.
Okay.
I also have 2 very mature maples and a not so healthy pine on the eastern edge of my property.
That probably makes sense.
I'm prepared to deal with all of that kind of manually. I don't care about the time it takes. It's just a matter of doing it safely and cleanly. So yeah, and I'm playing with pressures and things like that, just trying to make sure it's all going to work. And in the back of my mind, I've got a new well I've got to dig at some point, but that's very doubt. Hopefully not too soon. I mean, I want that down the path quite a ways, but only time will tell on that one. Yeah.
All right.
How about you, Kyle? What you working on?
Well, before we do that, just for our listeners, Jeff, what he's working on right now is he's doing a presentation at Airmont
Oh,
College.
there it is. Yep.
So he's going to be joining us a little later as we're recording this. So we'll hear from him a little bit later. But as for me, I was bending some bloomback bows. So I posted a little video on Instagram of me bending those. Those are kiln dried bows that I'd soaked for about 10 days or so, and then steamed them for 2 hours and bent them. And I did 4 bows. I had one failure, which I shouldn't have had. That was the first one I bent, and it was bending fine, but you got to use a strap to bend them. And as it was coming around the form, it was bending, but it started bending down off the strap. So I had to go there and try to, I spent too much time with it, and then I finally gave up on the strap. I think it's like one of those things. They say you lose, 50 IQ points when you do a glue up. I think it's 100 when you're steam bending. But what I should have done is I should have just thrown that thing back in the steamer. But I took the strap off and tried to bend it by hand, which I knew was a mistake. And it ended up, it bent, but ended up fraying a little bit on the top of the bloom back, which is fine. I took it off, and then the other 3 bent fine. But that one I can use for setups for the other ones when I do some of the mortising and stuff like that I need to do on the ends of them to fit into the seat blank. So anyway, so it's, like I said, it should have been a perfect 4 out of 4, but 3 out of 4 on kiln dried wood, I'll take it every time, especially with a bend that, radical, I guess, as far as the things. But yeah, besides that, it worked fine. The other thing I'm working on is, I talked about my stretcher mate before. It's my newest little device. I don't know if you want to call it a jig or whatnot, but it helps you measure not only the depth of your mortises, but the lengths of your stretchers between mortises. But I kind of use that same setup, and I came up with my new bench dog, and I'll show it for the viewers here. But anyway, it's just a standard bench dog. I have a wooden version.
Yeah.
That basically I copy, but the wooden version has this ball catch that is just hard to compress. And these are using the same ball catch as a stretcher mate that I'm coming up with. So these don't require nearly as much pressure, so they won't, in the stretcher mate, it won't mar the outside of your mortises. In this case, it just fits in nicely. So anyway, this is my test run. It seems to work pretty well. But I still need to do some more testing, but I may put those up on the site. They shouldn't be too expensive.
Are you are those made of aluminum?
No. These are 3D printed. They're out of plastic.
Oh, they're 3D printed. Okay. I was going to
Yeah.
ask about how you're protecting it from marring, but that plastic's probably.
Yeah. You're not going to do anything with it. And these are totally solid. There's no infill.
So no infill. That is a solid piece of plastic.
Solid piece of plastic. So yeah. So I think it should hold up to a fair amount of abuse, but I still need to put it through the ringer and make sure that's okay. And as far as the stretcher mate are out to my chairmaker testers, so they're testing those. So we'll see. Hopefully, I'll hear back from them soon on that. So anyway, with that, Peter, what are you working on in your shop?
What am I working on in my shop? Well, I've been weaving some chair seats. I made 3 ladder back chairs in the past couple weeks, and one by one weaving seats on them. So now I'm at the stage where I've got the seats done and just doing all the fine tuning, pegging the slats and trimming them up and that sort of stuff. So
okay. So what material are you using for the seats? I believe it's bark, from what I understood.
Yeah. Hickory bark. Yeah.
Nice. So where are you getting your hickory bark? Are you
I've, for the past, I don't know how many years, 6 years, more than 6 years, I've cut it with, you guys know Brendan Gaffney.
Yes.
Cut it with Brendan out there in New York, near where he lives. He's got a friend who gives us access to a patch of woods where we're able, with the 2 pieces of bark I used yesterday to weave the seat, the one was 34 feet long and the other was 39 feet long.
Right.
And so it's bark that I've never seen the likes of this. Where I live, when I was first making chairs all those years ago, if I got an 8-foot strip, I was happy.
Yeah, for sure.
Now I just an embarrassment of riches when I get bark with.
Nice.
Yeah.
That is nice. Yeah, here where I live, we don't have any trees like that. I mean, if you
Yeah.
want southern yellow pine, I got plenty of that for you.
It's funny, hickory trees, the wood was useless. They were dead straight for the 30 feet, 30, 40 feet, and clear and everything, but had grown so slowly as to be as weak as a kitten.
Oh, really? Wow.
Oh, wow.
It was just useless, absolutely. And it was so frustrating because I was going to do what you're describing. I was going to bend some chair stuff with them, and it just blew up right in my hands and just worked.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. I'd never seen anything like it. The trees were probably, maybe they're 12 inches in diameter, maybe a little shade bigger, not much bigger, and 80 or more years old, really old, and really slow growing. Not really old, really slow growing. Anyways, yeah.
Do you think that's what might have made the bark so usable, so nice?
Oh,
no, that I don't think is a factor. The rate of growth isn't a factor in the bark. It's just in the bark, the whole wrap is clear and straight.
Right.
And that's
okay. Just wondering. I don't know much about bark.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, cool. Well, so for listeners, tell us a little bit about where you grew up and how'd you get into woodworking in the first place?
I grew up about 20 miles from where I am right now, on the south shore of Boston. And I was in high school training to go to art school in the 1970s. And my father died very young. He was 51 years old. I was 17. And from him, I ended up with a basement full of woodworking tools, a table saw, a drill press, a router, all of that sort of stuff. He was, he worked in a hardware store and was a do-it-yourself handyman sort of hobbyist woodworker. And I never made anything with him, but once those tools were mine, somebody showed me how to use the table saw, and I was, as I said, I was an art student, so I was learning how to make picture frames and that sort of thing, and just dabbling in woodwork, and that began in 1975, and the following year, somebody showed me fine woodworking, which was nearly brand new.
Yes,
I mean, it was brand new.
Yeah.
And so I started to get that magazine and read about all these things that I had no knowledge of. And so little by little, my interest in art school, that only lasted in art school for a year. And so I piddled around being half of a painter and half of a woodworker, and then ended up just dropping the painting. So.
Interesting. Well, how did you get captivated by 17th century furniture?
There's in between first. It's funny. I had looked at some of your questions, and a lot of it touches on a book I'm writing that I call,
fantastic.
My craft genealogy. And so fine woodworking in 1978 published Jenny Alexander's book, Make a Chair from a Tree.
Mm-hmm.
Their first how-to book, they had done a design book before, but this was their first project, one subject book sort of thing. And they had an excerpt of that book in one of the issues with the advertisement to order the book. And I did that. I ordered the book, and the article was Alexander's shaving horse. So I built the shaving horse while waiting for the book to arrive. And in the same issue, was an article by Drew Langsner about splitting logs apart to get usable material. And so splitting and riving green wood, perfect companion piece, and it was done intentionally. And Drew had a new book that same year called Country Woodcraft. So I got those books and I read them. I made a few chairs. And then in 1980, saw an advertisement in fine woodworking for a class down at Drew's place called Country Workshop, with Alexander making a stool, not a chair, just a rectangular stool with all the same joinery, the split the log and shape pieces and dry the rungs and do all that. So that was 1980. it was Alexander's second class, and I went and took that class, and that was how I sort of met those two, and really got involved in what we now call green woodworking. And I, by then, had a job as a picture framer. And so the woodworking was my avocation. And but little by little, I was getting further into it. And then a few years went by. 1985, I went back to Drew's to take some more classes. And then I was there once or twice a year, every year for about until about 1993. So I became what I called a repeat offender. I was there all the time. I lived there in 1988. I was their summer intern. And so I took every class Country Workshop offered. And somewhere along the line, struck up a friendship with Alexander. And she used to show this slideshow. Alexander was a trip. She used to show this slideshow about oak furniture, joint furniture. She studied period furniture, examining the originals at Winterthur Museum, and was a very busy, very professional lawyer, and had a family and various other demands on her time. So didn't have a lot of time to do woodworking, but had a lot of time to think about woodworking. And and she used to show this slide lecture about a 17th century cupboard door that she and the curator at Winterthur took apart, and so they could look into the joints. And she wanted to teach a class in how to make a whole chest. We'll all work together. We'll make one chest. And Drew wouldn't have anything to do with it till he could see a chest.
Right.
And it was never going to make a chest. She didn't have the time. And that's why she wanted to teach the class so she could see it happen. And I was the only one who was falling for it. And so, yeah, that's how I got hooked onto 17th century stuff. And then as I got involved in that area of study, one of the things that I think, in hindsight, one of the things that drove it home, one was the appeal of the green woodworking and all of that sort of rubbish. But the other was that all these original pieces we were looking at in museums were made from right around where I live. They're all made in coastal Massachusetts, Connecticut, between 1630 and 1700. That's where the English people lived. So I knew the geography of it all. And I think, that had like some conscious appeal. Something.
Well, that's fascinating. So jump just a little bit ahead on some of the questions, but, how much, when you're doing these reproductions, how much actual detective work? You mentioned Jenny Alexander was taking apart some furniture and stuff like that. I'm sure the museum curators don't let you do that anymore, but
no, that was a very time. And but the people who do restoration work, they get great insights that way. And I just have never been that person. I don't have the balls to take apart the 17th century. I have one that I own that I did some repair work to, and I was able to. There was it's a joint chest, and a rail that had been removed in an earlier restoration, but the tenons were still in the stiles, and that meant that the pegs were there, and I wanted the pegs. I wanted to replace the rail, so I had to get those tenons out. So the first thing I had to do was get those pegs out. And they're all drawboards, so the peg wiggles through there. And that means you can't get it out very easily. And I used a nail set to back one out, and it took 45 minutes to get this 1.5 inch long peg out because I wanted the photograph of that bent peg. And so I don't do much of that. But yeah, I studied a lot of period furniture. I used to go to the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. When I first showed up there, it was 1989. And just off the street said, I want to see inside these. And they gave me a graduate student, and she showed me around. And it was all well and good, and I took a bunch of notes. And then I went back to my shop, and what happens, you get more questions. Once you start, you get more questions. And So after a time, I got a hold of them there at the museum to explain just the situation. I got another batch of questions, and that person said, "No, we don't have time to monkey around with this." And I said to her, "Is there somebody else I can, get rejected by?" And she gave the phone to the assistant curator at the time, a man named Ned Cook, and I described to Ned what I was wanting to do. He said, "That sounds great. Why don't you come in on Mondays? We're closed, and we can do whatever we want."
Nice.
And that was how I got to study the collection at the MFA. Didn't get to take pieces apart, but got to really handle them well and see inside, outside, underneath, it, behind, pick it up, move it around, the whole 9 yards. And that was a hell of an education.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Wow, that is.
Yeah, it's great. And then other museums have been really, really generous with their collections and with their time. I've been really lucky in that regard. And one place I think of that you've probably certainly heard about, the Yale Furniture.
Yep.
And that's a place where you can go and really, really learn a lot, get that hands-on experience with the pieces.
Yeah, I know a lot of chair makers that make a visit up there, and they go, yeah, they'll just put the piece out there and leave you alone, and you can.
Yeah, it's great stuff. So, and then once I was up and running and other doors opened, and I got to make 3 trips to England to study stuff there, and there it's 17th century. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
And give it much second thought. And one of the best places to look at that sort of work in England is in what they call these redundant churches. They're churches that no longer have a congregation. So you might have this 900-year-old building, and it has some really old woodwork in it, but some of the new stuff might be from the 16th. And you can go in there all day and have a field day with it and stuff.
Yeah.
So I do a bunch of that.
Well, what did you find differences between the stuff in England versus the stuff they were making here in New England?
Some broad differences and some really minute differences. Broadly, in keeping in mind all generalizations are wrong. The English stuff, the local stuff in England, the local wood is usually of a very poor quality, growing not in a forest but out in the open. All usually pit sawn material and all crazy grain and weird stuff. But it didn't seem to faze them. It didn't seem to stop them. They carved it. They cut joints in it. That pieces of wood that I wouldn't even let in the shop. They were able to really, really do fabulous work on. And then here in New England, you've got that perfect, slow-grown, wide oak that just splits open like a book. And you see a little of that in English work, but by and large, the general differences are that using pit sawn, questionable quality in Old England, and riven, perfect quake. That's the biggest difference.
That's wild.
So guys must have got off the boat and just shit their pants.
Look at this.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Virgin forest of wood, oak, and everything. Yeah.
Somebody one day they had come to a presentation I was doing, and they were saying, they thought green woodworking, they thought it was, ecologically responsible or something. I said, no, this is imperialist swine woodworking, continent, and then rape it to get this material. And that didn't go over well either.
Yeah.
I can imagine. Well, so tell us about your new book with Lost Art Press, the 17th-Century Essex County Cupboard. Why this book and why that piece of furniture?
Yeah, why indeed? Who on earth? It's Lost Art Press. They're the only people who would publish a book.
There you go.
So, 2021, I got an email from somebody who had looked at a decrepit 17th century cupboard at an auction, and it was beyond repair and stuff. And so this person wrote to me and said, I'd like you to make me a reproduction of this particular cupboard at the Massachusetts Historical Society. It was made in Essex County, Massachusetts, which is the north shore of Boston, just below New Hampshire, and 1680s or so. And I knew the cupboard very well. There's another long story involved there. All of my stories are long.
We're a long form podcast, so that's
okay.
fine.
So this fellow, he wrote to me, I'd like, would you be interested in making this? And I worked up a quote and I sent it to him and he said, yeah, I'd love to make that cupboard. And he wrote back, or he called me and said, the price is fine, which I immediately went, oh, I should have gone higher. And I don't care how long it takes. I just want it done right and I want it well documented. And I said, where have you been? This is what I need. This is it, and I always have a camera. I have since 1989 when I first started doing joint stuff with Alexander, because we took pictures and mailed them back and forth. She was in Baltimore and I was up here in Massachusetts, so we were always photographing stuff so we could compare notes.
Right.
So I said, yeah, I'll take all the pictures, something up, and I was talking to Chris Shores, and I have a book with them called Joiner's Work, where I build boxes and chests and all that stuff. And I said to Chris, we could do, like, on the next printing of the Joiner's book, do an addendum, add a chapter or two about this cupboard. And he said, no, let's make it a standalone book. So yeah. I was all in, said, sure. And so in the course of building that cupboard, I was writing about it on my blog. I think I currently have 2 blogs, and that maybe at the beginning of the cupboard, I just had the one, and then I added the Substack one. Mm-hmm. And a reader there watched the whole process and said, I want one. So I got to do it again right away.
Nice.
So I built 2 of them over the course of like 2.5 years. And they're both in the book. I leap back and forth between them in the book. They're both the same cupboard. One has a different finish. One was made to sort of blend with antiques, and one was made to look new. And so that's how that happened. That's why there is that book. And I am interested in it because now there is a record of how one person went about, reverse engineering this cupboard. Here's my best idea on how to build this. Mm-hmm. I would love to build another one, but I don't see me getting the chance. It's not the kind of thing I can build on spec.
Right.
So now we have a record of how it was done for somebody later to say, no, he was up a tree. That's crazy. It goes like this and stuff. But the cupboard is one. I'd said I knew it quite well because from 1998 to 2001, I worked with 2 colleagues doing a furniture history article about that cupboard and its 11 related cupboards, all made in the 1670s to 1690 or so.
So made by the same person or firm?
Same shop. You see, we don't know who they are.
Yep.
But you see the fingerprints, and they're just, I don't know if you've looked at that cupboard or that book. It's insane. It's crazy. And so we had spent 2.5 years traveling around to see these 12 cupboards and measure them and photograph them and analyze them. And so I was I had a lot of notes already. I know the shop tradition, we call it. I know the shop tradition's characteristics really well. So it was fabulous to be able to dive into that again after all those years.
Yeah, because it's got so much stuff going on. So are all the turned parts, and I guess some of the accents that are black, is that are those painted or ebonized? Or
So yeah, for you listening at home, it's got carved decoration, it's got applied moldings forming geometric pattern, and it's got applied turnings, spindles and ovals, rounds and arches, and most of those turning, except for the arches, are done in a diffuse porous wood. It's probably maple on the originals. It's mostly maple on mine, but I substituted some cherry.
Mm-hmm.
Living in New England, I couldn't find a decent maple log to make the big pillars of.
Oh, amazing.
It's so stupid. And those pillars are 4.5 inches in diameter, and there's 4 of them on the cupboard. And so I made some of them out of cherry and some of them out of birch. But yeah, they're all painted black. The notion is, we don't know for certain, but the idea is it's to imitate it. And so anyways, yeah, that's all painted decoration.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense, because some of the finer pieces and, the royalty type stuff was probably ebony. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, in a lot of the Dutch stuff, the really, really high style Dutch stuff, sort of material in it. Yeah.
Okay. What is the lighter wood that's in here? Is that maple?
Yeah, there's some maple accents on the geometry on the drawers and accenting some of the panels. So the bulk of it is red oak. There's some white pine panels in the back, and then maple accents. All the moldings are oak, and then the turnings, like I said, are various diffuse woods.
Yeah, and there are some carved elements here, but not
just one,
not typical.
Broad front.
Yeah.
And it isn't really a very good carving.
Yeah.
This shop was mostly, the turning is what is just over the top. These guys were whoever did the turning, virtuoso turners. They usually didn't repeat themselves. Like this cupboard has turnings like that. The next cupboard, the details will be different. More reels, different coves. But still instantly recognized. Really a lot of room. So there's 4 drawers in the lower case, and then just a cupboard door in the middle of the upper case. And so
it's an impressive piece. I'd love to see it in person. I bet it really dominates the room, so to speak.
It demands a lot of it, and that's just the style of the time.
Yeah.
It's what our historians call a horror vacui, a fear of a blank space. There isn't any on the cupboard.
No. It's
best.
So any hidden compartments in the cupboard?
Only in the cornice. You can reach up into the cornice through the cupboard, that overhanging cornice, so you can stash your cocaine up in that cornice.
Okay.
Find it and stuff, but no, there's nothing. No slide this away and something pops out. None of that sort of.
Okay, thing. Yeah. You see something that elaborate with that many moldings? That's the first thing that pops in my mind.
Yeah. A lot of people think that, and no, I haven't seen much of that in 17th century English work at all.
Yeah. And the piece that looks brand new, the one that's not,
right, the one that is
toned. Yeah, I guess you toned it to bring it down. Yeah, both of that is just impressive. There are small different details between the two? Yeah,
the door. In the door, I think the first one might have a round. So It's funny talking about furniture in this audio format, but the door has this whole series rectangular frames that sort of telescope into the very center. And the center of one of them is a round button, and the center of another one is a long beveled piece we call a glyph.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
So
a glyph. Okay. Yeah.
And I forget why I switched them.
Yeah. Those are amazing pieces. Wild. So do you think you'll make something like that again?
I would love to. So
do you have the spare spot in your house?
I don't have that. No. Nor do I have the spare spot in my calendar. And what I do have is, the clock is ticking. I'll be 69 in a month or so. And so I've got a few years. Mm-hmm. And it takes a lot of effort when turning those pillars. So this is a pole lathe.
I was going to ask you that. Did you turn this on a regular lathe or a pole lathe? Yeah.
Yeah. And a pole lathe is a regular lathe.
Well, I mean, 20th century lathe or a pole lathe. Yeah.
The blank when it went on the lathe was 13 pounds.
Oh man.
Because you got to get that big chunk.
And you got to get that spinning and
got to get, I wanted to finish at 4.5 inches.
Yeah.
So splitting it at about 5.5, and then I hew it with an axe into a goofy, like exaggerated bowling pin shape, and mount that on the lathe. And at 13 pounds and that kind of diameter, it turns very slowly at first. But once you get something small enough diameter to wrap the cord around, then you start. Pardon me. Then you start to get more revolutions, and it starts to really happen.
Yeah.
I turn them in stages. I rough it out and leave it oversized and let it dry some, and work at a few different sessions.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense because you're working with the green wood. Yeah.
They can crack badly.
Yeah, because I know some bowl turners, when they're doing that, they'll pack them up for like a year before they come back to them after they get them roughed out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, wow, that is interesting. That is an impressive piece of furniture.
I'm glad you like it. So, and that one that I copied is a really involved example from that shop, but there are others that are nuttier, that have more stuff. One of the things this shop is known for in these cupboards is to have overhanging sections. So you're framing the joint so this piece sticks out to the left or out to the front. And some of them have overhangs in two directions, front and sides. So I'd like to tackle one of the other cupboards from that group. So if anybody's listening and has a spare blank check, I'll make another.
Of course.
Okay, well we'll put that out, and of course in the show notes, Peter's contact information will be there. Just reach out to him.
All right, I'll kick you a tip if it happens.
Okay, a little finder's fee. There you go. Well, one of the things you're most known for are the carved furniture that you do, and you've had a number of things that are carved, as far as laying out the carvings. You've had blog posts, videos, and all kinds of stuff on that, and that is just great. So, when did you actually start carving, and what piqued your interest into that?
It was Alexander and her looking at that period work at Winterthur,
mm-hmm.
and getting somebody to test her theories. That's really what it was, and I was interested enough to try it. And I thought I would, I just thought I'll make a chance. I didn't think, wow, I'll get a career out of this. And so I started to study those objects. I built my first chest in 1989, and carved it very slowly because I didn't, I had a early 20th century book on carving to go by. Nobody taught me carving in that. I didn't go and physically get with someone who was a carver, but I was reading about it and studying the original. But it just started to snowball, and as I learned more and saw more, one of the people that Alexander turned me on to was a furniture historian named Bob Trent, who at the time was a curator at Winterthur, and I still work with Trent now, all these years later. And Trent sort of guided me in a study of New England furniture. At the time, as I said, he was curator at Winterthur, and one of their tasks is to train the graduate students who go through the University of Delaware to be museum curators. And through the mail, Trent gave me some of the same training he was giving these young graduate students. Here's how you study the artifacts. Here's how you study the document. Here's how you tie them together. Here's how you do the research. Go here, go there, look for this, look for that. And so I was getting two educations at one. One in the shop and in the museum looking at the objects, but then another working with Trent, studying how to be a furniture historian, but with a particular viewpoint that the woodworker had.
Right.
So, it's one of those things, I'm sure you hear it a lot, is I fell into this. It just stumbled into it, and it just kept building and building. And I went to a museum in Plymouth, Massachusetts one day. I snuck into a lecture that Trent was giving, and that museum was then called Plymouth Plantation. And It was part of a weekend symposium, and he was the last speaker. So I snuck in. I didn't pay for it. I wasn't there for the whole weekend. I just went to hear one talk. And I sat down in the dark next to a person I knew. And he said, "Hey, there's somebody here I want you to meet." And so afterwards, I met this guy who worked there. And he said, "Do you want a job here?" He had seen a newspaper article about the woodworkers. "Do you want a job here?" And I said, "Yeah, that'd be great." "Well, we don't have any openings." And but over time, that fella actually was moving on, and I ended up part-time taking his place, making the furniture at the museum, and ended up doing that for 20 years. So that's another aspect to my training and education, is that I had that job, and it was like the guys at Williamsburg, the same sort of gig.
Right.
Used to say, "Oh, it's like working in the zoo. I'm in a cage." And they throw peanuts or something, and oh, look at what he's doing! Isn't that interesting and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
But all that was required of me was to show up 40 hours a week and make stuff in the shop and talk to people about it. There were no deadlines. There was very little structure at all beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
And what woodworker doesn't want to say, "Hey, let me show you what I'm doing"?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
That's a dream job.
Look
Wow.
at this. Look at this. Look at what I just figured out. And so to have that kind of repetition, to go in every day and carve something, or every day and turn something, it was just, you couldn't get that education out in the real world. If I had to make my living by what came out of the shop, I couldn't have learned what I learned.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So I was incredibly lucky.
Mm-hmm. Well, now from what you were trying to piece together with the carvings and some of Jenny Alexander, some of her intuition and what they were doing, was that did you ever find the correct answer to what they were doing in period? Or at least the best educated guess to see whether what Jenny was thinking was true or not, or what?
Well, when Alexander started out looking at this work, it was 1980, and her book had just been out, a year and a half or something. So she was at first going on the assumption that the joints in the chest, the mortise and tenon in the chest, which are, chopped with a chisel, cut with a saw and a chisel, so a rectangular mortise and tenon. She was working on the principle that it was a wet, dry joint, like in her chair.
Okay.
And that's flawed. And it took long to figure out that that's not right. But that was one of the things. And that's what the whole game is. Well, you develop a hypothesis and then you test it.
Right.
Yep.
And you throw out what doesn't work and you keep what does work. So.
Okay.
There's only a little bit written from the period about what they were doing, and so we'll never know for sure if I'm on the right track, but I think I am. We see the tool evidence. I know they used an axe here. I know they used a froe there.
Yeah.
I know there's an errant saw curve here and that sort of thing. You can see the compass layout for a lot of the carvings. So many of these things are evident on the object today.
Mm-hmm.
The marking gauge lines are still there, and we know what their toolkit was. So, there's some supposition that, okay, this is pretty straightforward stuff. You lay it out with a mortise gauge, and you chop it with a chisel, and you cut the shoulder with a saw. And, that's some of that basic stuff.
Well, let me ask you this. So if you could travel back in time and spend like a day or so with a 17th century joiner, what would you pay attention to?
Yeah. It's real minutia. There's just so many stupid little things. How in the blazes did they do this with, one window or two windows in the shop? And I have 16 windows in my shop. I have sometimes too much light. But years and years ago, 25 years ago, I was building these pieces, copy of a small cabinet made north of Boston. And you open the cabinet door and there's 10 little drawers. You think like a spice box. It looks like that. It's 18 inches square, 9 inches deep, and it's got 10 little drawers inside. And those little drawers are made out of thin pieces of oak that if they're 3/16 of an inch thick, that's their maximum thickness. And they're held together with headless wire brads. They look just like an 18 gauge wire brad without a head. And you drive them and you nail these things together and then bend the brad over and drive it into the grain. So it's like a little L-shaped brad. They look doink.
Wow.
How did they plane that thin stuff? And how did they make pilot holes for those stupid little nails? How did they split these dumb drawers to smithereen? And I made about, there's 10 drawers in the cabinet, and I made 7 or 8 of them. So I made about 80 of these drawers and drove myself to distraction doing it. I ended up using an egg beater drill to make a pilot hole with a wire brad, and knowing, all right, they don't have this tool, they don't have
Yeah.
and
How would they?
so that's one stupid little thing that I would, oh yeah, tell me more, tell me. Guys do that. What am I missing? What obvious simple thing am I missing?
Yeah.
And so stuff like that, it's all minutia. The big stuff I get.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, exactly. But I like that part. So conversely, what do you think a 17th century joiner would think of your shop?
Where the hell did you get all these windows?
Probably.
Yeah.
Boy, glass is cheap
Yeah,
these
yeah.
days.
Well, I have clamps now that I didn't used to use them much.
Yeah.
And they don't seem to use them at all. So that might be one thing that sticks right out. I mean, the main bench I built to be like a 17th century bench.
Hmm.
And the pole lathe is the pole lathe. That's nothing usual. So yeah, it might be. I have auger bits. They didn't have auger bits and stuff.
Hmm.
I don't use them in joinery really.
Right.
But so for joined furniture, I think other than it's a nice wooden floor and you get all these windows and stuff. That's great. I think otherwise, yeah, that sort of thing would work out.
Right. So
Why am I wearing shorts?
Because it's hot.
that's right.
Yeah.
Because we cut those things off when it's hot.
Yeah.
Well, that's so you try as best you can to use the tools that they had at the time, right?
These days, like I make these carved boxes. It's like a
Mm.
standard fare in the period.
Mhm.
Just a boarded box, a little till inside, carved on the front and the sides, hinged lid. And nowadays, when I do them, so it's a rabbet joint, and the fasteners are just you bore a hole and drive square wooden pins in
Okay.
the joint, and it's glued. And I used to do it without a clamp at the museum, and I can do it that way, but it's easier to just clamp those rabbet joints with the glue and come back afterwards and bore them and peg them. So that's how I do it with student. And so that's one thing that I switched up. I could switch it back tomorrow and not really miss a step.
Hmm.
It's just easier.
Yeah, and especially when you're teaching folks and stuff like that,
Yeah.
You got to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of that, what are some of the misconceptions in your classes and stuff that modern woodworkers have about period furniture?
Well, they think that they think it's slow. They think the carving will take a long time, and the carving doesn't take much time at all. Those, I mean, that's mostly these days I just teach really 2 classes: Alexander's ladderback chair
Right.
and my carved box. And so that's sort of, that narrows the focus on period furniture in my classes. So there might not be that much for them to really look into, but is in a general thing when people come to my shop to visit and they don't know, they aren't familiar with what I'm doing. They think that it must just be a tremendous amount of work to split and plane all this wood. And this is the easiest thing going.
Yeah.
Because people who have worked flats on kiln dried red oak,
Yes.
they're not using the same material.
Yeah.
A ribbon piece of red oak that's green is night and day from flats on pieces.
Yeah. Those bows, when I had to move those through a bandsaw, paying very attention to the grain to make sure, I'm keeping the grain completely straight through those bows. Yeah, it's totally different.
Yeah, see, that's Albert's fault.
Yeah.
That you can do that. Because I used to have students like you who live far away from Greenwood.
Right.
They would say, "What do I do?" And I'd say, "Move." and Galbert said, "Well, let me figure out what you can do," and he created what you can do, and it works. But yeah, it's
a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work. It's like you got to treat it like kiln dried wood until you can get it soaked and bent, and then
and you got to follow. You have to find that fiber line and follow it.
Yeah,
I find it with the fro.
Exactly. Yeah, it's something else. Well, so tell us. You mentioned the 2 classes you teach. So where are you teaching those classes?
At Pete's.
At Pete's.
Yeah, I've taught in lots and lots of places, and I might still teach elsewhere. But generally, I've cut back on that sort of stuff. At one point, when I quit the museum in 2014, and then I was going out like once a month, 8 months out of the year somewhere, and that just got too much.
Right.
So now I'm at Pete's maybe 3 or 4 times a year.
Okay. Nice. And then you also have some online stuff too, where you
sorry?
You also have some online classes that you can.
Yeah, I've done videos online, but I just got news last week that Vimeo on demand is going to go poof.
Oh man.
And so got to find a new home for those things and stuff, but that'll work out.
Yeah. Well, thank you for telling me, because I got some classes I've signed up for. I guess I need to go and make sure I got those things downloaded.
Yeah. Post before we got together tonight and telling people about mine, saying, yeah, if you bought them, download them. And I mean, I still have them, and I'll put them somewhere when the time comes, but I wouldn't want people to have to buy them again.
Right.
So anyway, yeah, I've done some of that. I mean, I've done a bunch of different approaches and stuff, but Pete makes it so I don't know if you've seen pictures of his new place.
Mm-hmm.
It's just stunning, fabulous space, and it's just been a real pleasure to work with him a lot. I've been working with him known him for a long time, and he always kept saying, come with me, and I finally did. And yeah, great. I'm going there in 2 weeks, so we'll make some chairs.
Nice.
Cool. With that, are you currently researching anything that you're excited about these days?
Man, you don't have another 2 or 3 or 4 hours, do you?
Of course. Come on.
Of course. Yeah. It's semi-historical. I mentioned earlier I'm writing a book, and it's about the people who taught me woodworking. So Alexander and I used to correspond. I mentioned she was in Baltimore and working at the law. I was in Massachusetts, and we'd write a letter and stick the pictures in it and mail it off. And at one point she said, keep copies of these, because you got to be able to see the whole back and forth. So I'd write my letter, I'd take the pictures, I'd slap them all in a photocopier, mail the stuff off to Alexander. She would reply, and we'd create these notebooks that went on and on and on. And we did that until digital took it over. So for close to 10 years, created a huge pile of paper. A lot of it is dribbled, and some of it is really good. And as her health was failing, she was saying to me, well, what are we going to do with my notebook? And I thought, well, shit, I already got my copies of them. I don't need 2 copies of these things. And as we both arrived at the idea, let's put them at Winterthur's research lab. And through our connections with Winterthur, able to make that happen stuff before she died. And when she did die, our friend Bob Trent and I did a presentation at Winterthur about what we called the Jenny Alexander gift, which was these notebooks and a couple of chairs. And I then got to go look at the notebooks, and I had been in Alexander's home for years and years and years, and never knew the notebooks went all the way back to 1974.
Oh, wow.
And she would write a letter, dear Kyle, dear Sean, pardon the form of this letter, but I write in my notebook and I sent you the photocopy. And I keep my correspondence together, which was only semi-true because she had the incoming letters in the same place. So there in the Alexander notebooks at Winterthorne, I've gone and copied most of them, are all of her outgoing letters to tool dealers, furniture historians, museum curators, woodworkers, Dave Sawyer, Drew Langster. I can tell you the day she introduced herself to these people and how it all happened. So I'm writing this book about Alexander, but there's also, Drew Langsner and another man I met at Drew's named Daniel O'Hagan. Daniel's been dead a long time, died in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
And he was my inspiration to get rid of my electric tools. And I met him in 1985, and he lived, they didn't have the term off-grid then, but that's how he lived.
Right.
1958 until his death in 2000. And he did woodworking with all hand tools and a pole lathe. And I spent a week with him doing a timber framing project. And I came home from that class and called my brother and brother-in-law and said, come get this stuff out of here. And I got rid of all my power tools. And Daniel O'Hagan kept them, and I got of those. And his were in the form of index. And I photographed them. And I took 7,000 photographs.
Oh my gosh!
It isn't all woodworking, but
Sure.
a lot of it is. And O'Hagan is the person who taught Dave Sawyer about how to do green woodworking.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm writing this book, and it's about Alexander and Langsner and O'Hagan and Sawyer and Curtis Buchanan. I was with Alexander. We were students in Curtis's first Windsor chair class.
Oh, man.
Wow.
87. And so there's all these people that taught me woodworking, and I'm writing a story about how they all came together and when I can, what they learned, how they learned it, where they.
Oh, that's going to be fascinating.
I want there to be a record of what these guys did.
Mm-hmm.
And now so much stuff we come to it like this on the web and stuff, and I want people to know, well, this is how it happened back in that period. I was teaching a class one day and telling some young people about you'd get the Fine Woodworking magazine, and in the back would be the ads about this class this summer, and you'd have to mail away a check in the mail and hope that you got in a spot, and you wait for the thing to come back, and then then it happens, and this kid said to me, "Can you imagine?" I said, "I don't have to imagine.
I lived it."
Remember, that's how I was there. That's how it was. You wanted to buy a tool, you had Garrett Wade and Woodcraft and Frog Tool, and you had to mail away for a catalog and stuff. And I better write this stuff down.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. It's amazing the last 30 years in the craft.
Yeah, how it's all changed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want there to be a record of what these people did, how they sort of brought us to the point where then, we took off from there. And,
Does some of this, especially with the stuff with Alexander, does some of this go into when she was developing the classic Jenny chair, so to speak?
Oh, yeah. I own one of her first chairs. It's it's terrible.
It's terrible.
Oh no!
So uncomfortable. It's just a copy of a shaker one slat chair, and it just plain hurts to sit in and stuff. And I owned one of her last chairs as well. But I mean, it's all there in those notebooks. She's working. She is working to write it all down and wants to write an article, and is talking to Charles Hummel, the curator of Winterthur, and. Charlie, where do I write this as an article? How do I do this? Do I write it as a book? And Hummel said, all right, I sicked a man named Paul Roman on you. And he's just started this magazine called Fine Woodworking. And then Alexander met, I don't know if you remember, Rich Starr, who wrote a fine woodworking book called Woodworking with Kids.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, Rich was a fascinating character. He still is. I mean, he's still alive. I visited him a couple of years ago with George Sawyer. And Rich he was in cahoots with Fine Woodworking very early on and met Alexander in 77. They corresponded for a good while before that. And Rich shot the photographs for Alexander's book, uncredited. And Rich knew Daniel O'Hagan. He met O'Hagan by accident. He was on a bicycle trip, and he went for a walk in the woods and stumbled into Daniel's house in 1963. And met Dave Sawyer very much the same way a few years later. And so when Rich and I connected and knew that, our connection went further than Alexander, it was really very enlightening. And all of that, and I've forgotten what your question was.
No, that's it. That's great. Well, before we let you go, tell us about what you like to do other than woodworking. Do you have any
bird watching?
Bird watching.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. Sean's a bird watcher.
Yeah, you're in the right region. I'm where the warblers come in migration. There's a couple of marshes by us.
I know. I heard the legend of McGee Marsh.
Yes, that's the one. That's like 40 minutes from my house. I'm very fortunate.
Geez, man, that's crazy. Who first told me about it was George Walker.
Really?
The design.
Yeah.
Lost Art Press. Yeah, George is a really good birder, and he and his wife go up to McGee Marsh every spring.
Yeah. It's this year was a little light because just kind of climate things that kind of slowed them down. It wasn't the right timing, and it wasn't as robust the time that we went out. Absolutely.
Yep.
It's a fun little hobby.
Yeah, it's an obsession and stuff. But yeah, May.
It is.
I try to book anything in May so I can concentrate on going birding and stuff.
Heck yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have any like what's I guess what's common or exotic maybe in your area?
I don't know I know what's common. They're all my trip lately. So after the spring migration and all the nesting happens, things kind of settle down. And at that point, my fixation is to watch this great blue heron that comes outside my shop to hunt the chipmunks under the bird feeders.
Oh, see, that's cool. That's cool.
He's there sometimes 4 or 5 times a day killing chipmunks.
My wife and we went to Tampa in March just as a little kind of a long weekend getaway, and where we were staying was right on a waterway, and there was this tricolored heron that was there routinely.
Yeah,
and it was just really fun to watch, just kind of their mannerisms. And the brown pelicans down there are just kind of goofy looking, and they do the thing. But
I have a tidal river in my backyard.
Oh, okay.
So I see some stuff there.
Yeah. We get out of the marshes, they get some massive pelican flocks every once in a while.
Wow.
It was kind of crazy to see, just a cloud in the sky that's these big fat birds.
See where I live, there's a number of bird sanctuaries, and I could probably throw a stone and it land near a blue heron.
Yeah. We have a fair amount of them as well.
You said you're on the Gulf Coast.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Springtime. I mean, people go there in the spring.
Oh yeah. There's
that have cut across the Gulf.
Yeah. There's a couple of areas that are probably within 45 minutes of me that are just strictly bird sanctuaries, part of these barrier islands and stuff. Yeah.
So the one of the things that woodworking has done for me is it's taken me to a lot of different places, and one of them was Australia, because I could carve spoons, and this is the stupidest thing going. Some people there didn't know me from a cord of wood, and they invited me to stay with them for a couple of days, and they built a blind so I could watch a satin bower bird do his thing. And that's the bird that goes and steals a bunch of blue plastic stuff and lays it out in a little patch of grass to impress the female.
Oh, wow.
I got to sit and watch this happen in Australia because I knew how to carve a spoon. It was just crazy. So that's my main thing. Woodworking.
Do you know of the Ybor chickens?
No, I've never even heard those two words.
Okay. There's an area in Tampa, Florida called Ybor City, which is where a bunch of Cuban cigar makers came in the 1880s. And the whole story is that they brought a bunch of agriculture with them, and then somehow it disbanded. And at this point, there are, like cats or dogs wild in any city, there are roosters and hens of these very colorful chickens just roaming the street, and they're protected.
Wow.
It's the wildest thing. And I got to see them. I was in Tampa last month, and it was the craziest thing to see this very, very colorful rooster just walking down the street licking from a pond.
Yeah. So if you want to teach at the Florida School of Woodwork, you can.
Yes. It was very close to Ybor City. It actually is. It's within a few blocks.
I don't hear Florida calling me and stuff.
No, not in this time of year. That's for sure.
Well, with that, Peter, where can folks find you on the interwebs?
Oh, yeah. These days, I still have an Instagram account, and I haven't posted anything there in a million years. Or if I do it, once every so many months. So that's mostly a waste of their time. I have a Substack blog that I write frequently on because there are people who are paying me to do it. So I pour it in there. And that, I don't know what it might be Follansbee Substack or something.
Yes, it is. Yes.
And there's an older blog that now exists mostly that has over 1,500 posts, and that's at P. Follansbee at WordPress. Okay. And so those are my two main gigs. I do have a website that I barely know how to create, and that might be Peter Follansbee. That is Peter Follansbee
Joiner.com. Yeah.
Those are, that's where I am, all this stuff. But the Substack and the free subscribers see half of it. And half of that might be plenty for a lot of people because I write there a lot. But I've been writing a lot on that blog about my craft genealogy. So to see excerpts of it and to see parts of it coming together or the research for it. And that's where I sort of try out some of the ideas and stuff.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, Substack's really turning into something for woodworking. There's so many people there now that are doing some fine stuff. And it's a lot better than what you get on Instagram and stuff like that, I think, as far as,
Instagram certainly changed. I mean, knock on wood, the other one won't, but everything changes on the web.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. With that, let's move on to our fortnightly beer choices. So I'm just drinking the house regular, which is Guinness for me. Sean, what about yourself?
It's a fairly regular for me. It's a local brewery called Inside the Five, and their Sunshine Sky. It's a little kind of a orange citrus ale. Very nice.
Sounds very summery.
It's very summery. Yes. What are you sipping on besides water that I saw you sipping on?
I'm sorry?
I said, what are you sipping on besides the water I saw you sipping on?
For me, it's water. And,
water's good. That's old classic H2O.
My most recent beer was June of 1975.
Wow.
That's fantastic streak.
It was high school graduation, and nobody had any reefer.
Oh, man.
So I tried beer, and I didn't finish it. I put it down, and I haven't been able to find it since.
You're better for it. I'll tell you that.
Yes.
It's never something appealed to me, that's all. But I know how much people like it.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I understand. Completely understand.
Know how it works.
Well, good. Well, let's move on to our feedback. So we got some feedback from episodes 614 and 615 with David DeYard. Silver River Chair says, let's all go down under for the ultimate chair nerd gathering. And Nick Found, chairmaker, who's lives in Australia, says, yes, please. I have a nice shop and y'all are welcome to chair in. So that's great. And Matthew Walsh said, great listening on the long trip home from Halifax yesterday, guys. Thanks for the shout out. And then Nick Found chimed in and he said, some fun listening to the MWA recently. I fear I'm not going to be able to rid myself of David, though. He's almost got squatter rights in my shop. It's been so much, God help me. But we did talk a little bit about steam boxes, and I think David brought up Nick's rig, and he says that he's been using what's called a steam bath generator, not a sauna steamer. He says they're pretty much the same, although his has less kilowatts. And he said Shay's been using this in his shop. It's very cost effective. He bought his off eBay for about $400. in Australia.
Australian, yeah. So
He said it's brilliant, constant water feed, lots of steam, no more kettles. So that's interesting. So anyway,
David and I both live in New England, but we met in Australia.
there you go. You were at the Lost Art
Or no, Lost
Trades
Fair.
Lost Trades Fair. Yes. I always get those two confused, and even their kind of symbol looks pretty.
I was with Glenn Rundell and his wife.
Yeah.
And that's when I dated.
Yeah. Glenn's a great guy. Well, with that, thank you so much, Peter, and we'll talk to you next week. And that just about wraps it up for this show. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show on the podcatcher of your choice. Just search for the Modern Woodworkers Association. And while you're there, please leave us a review. You can follow us on Instagram at MWA_podcast. And if you'd like to support the podcast, go over to patreon.com/MWA podcast. But the best thing you can do is tell a friend. Word of mouth goes a long way in sharing our discussion.